Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2006, the kind you've probably held in your hand 100 times without a second thought, could be worth $20 million? That's right, not $20, not 20,000, but 20 million, and right now, at this very moment, one of these pennies could be hiding in your change jar, your car cup holder, or even that old piggy bank you've been meaning to sort through for years. Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing they're literally tossing away a fortune that could buy them a mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, and a lifestyle most only dream about. So stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will make you check every single penny you own from this day forward. Now, the 2006 Lincoln penny might look like the most ordinary coin in circulation, with its familiar copper color and Abraham Lincoln's distinguished profile staring back at you, but hidden within a small number of these pennies is an error so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors around the world have been searching frantically for years to add one to their collection. You see, in 2006, the United States Mint in Philadelphia produced millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies, continuing the tradition that began way back in 1909 when the Lincoln cent first entered circulation to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history. But among those countless millions of ordinary pennies, something went catastrophically wrong at the mint, and I mean catastrophically. The error that occurred was so unusual, so incredibly rare, that when the first specimen was discovered, numismatic experts couldn't believe their eyes, and here's what happened. During the striking process, a small number of 2006 pennies were accidentally struck on wrong planchets, specifically on planchets intended for other denominations, and in some cases, these pennies were struck on dollar coin planchets made of manganese brass, creating a penny that weighs significantly more than it should, looks slightly different in color, and possesses characteristics that are immediately recognizable to trained collectors but easily overlooked by the average person just going about their day. The moment this error was confirmed, the collecting community went absolutely wild, because wrong planchet errors are among the most sought-after mistakes in numismatics, representing a perfect storm of mint malfunction that creates something truly unique and unrepeatable. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Beyond the wrong planchet errors, there are also reports of 2006 pennies with dramatic die breaks, off-center strikes that still show the complete date, and even double denomination errors where the penny was struck over a previously minted coin, creating a ghostly shadow of two different designs on a single piece of metal. These variations have sent the value of certain 2006 Lincoln pennies skyrocketing into the stratosphere, with the most pristine, most perfectly preserved examples fetching prices that would make your head spin. Imagine the story, somewhere in Philadelphia, in the controlled environment of the U.S. Mint where precision is everything and quality control is supposed to catch every single deviation from the standard, a handful of dollar coin planchets somehow made their way into the penny production line, and before anyone could catch the mistake, these planchets were fed into the penny dies, struck with the Lincoln design, and ejected as what appeared to be normal pennies, except they weren't normal at all. These error coins then entered circulation like any other penny, passing from hand to hand, dropped into tip jars, used to buy candy from vending machines, completely unnoticed by thousands of people who had no idea they were holding something that would one day be valued at millions of dollars. The first confirmed discovery of a 2006 wrong planchet penny happened when a sharp-eyed collector was sorting through rolls of pennies looking for anything unusual, and trust me, serious collectors do this religiously, going through countless rolls with a magnifying glass, a scale, and years of experience guiding their search, when suddenly, one penny felt wrong. It was too heavy, too thick, and when placed on a precision scale, it weighed in at over 8 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams that a normal zinc-core copper-plated penny should weigh. This collector's heart must have been pounding as the realization set in. This was not a regular penny, this was an error, and potentially a very valuable one. The coin was immediately sent to a professional grading service where experts examined every millimeter of its surface, confirmed its authenticity, and assigned it a grade based on its condition. And when that coin went to auction, the bidding went absolutely insane, with collectors from around the world competing fiercely, driving the price higher and higher until it finally sold for a staggering amount that proved beyond any doubt that 2006 Lincoln pennies with significant errors are among the most valuable modern coins in existence. Now, you might be wondering, how do you identify one of these incredible finds? First, you need to understand that weight is your primary indicator. Get yourself a digital scale that measures to at least 0.1 grams, because if you find a 2006 penny that weighs significantly more or less than 2.5 grams, you need to examine it very carefully. Next, look at the color. Wrong planchet errors struck on dollar coin blanks will have a slightly different hue, more golden or brassy compared to the typical copper appearance of a normal penny. Check the edge too. A penny struck on a thicker planchet will have a noticeably wider edge that you can feel with your fingertip, and if you have a magnifying glass, examine the surface for any signs of doubling, die breaks, or unusual wear patterns that don't match a typical penny. Beyond the wrong planchet errors, there are other varieties of the 2006 Lincoln penny that command serious premiums. Some 2006 pennies exhibit what's called a double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile, the date, or the motto, "In God We Trust," appears doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, and these double die pennies, especially in high grades, can sell for thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on the strength and visibility of the doubling. There are also 2006 S-proof pennies, which were struck at the San Francisco Mint specifically for collectors, and while these aren't typically found in circulation, if you happen to have old proof sets from 2006 and the penny shows any kind of error, even a minor one, its value could be exponentially higher than you'd expect. The history of the Lincoln penny itself adds another layer of fascination to these error coins. When Victor David Brenner designed the Lincoln cent in 1909, it was revolutionary because it was the first U.S. circulating coin to feature a real person rather than Lady Liberty or allegorical figures, and Lincoln was chosen because he represented the ideals of freedom and unity that the nation cherished, especially in the years following the Civil War. The reverse design has changed several times over the decades, from the original wheat ears design that lasted until 1958, to the Lincoln Memorial design that began in 1959 and continued through 2008, which is what you'll find on a 2006 penny, two subtle columns with the tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside his memorial, a design so detailed that it requires magnification to fully appreciate. Understanding this history makes finding an error coin even more thrilling because you're not just holding a valuable piece of metal, you're holding a piece of American history that went wrong in the most fortuitous way possible. And here's something that should make your heart race: these error pennies are still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be discovered in loose change, in old collections, in forgotten jars pushed to the back of closets. Every single day, someone somewhere might spend one of these $1,000,000 pennies without ever knowing what they had, which means your chance of finding one is real, tangible, and completely possible if you know what to look for. But wait, because if you think a 2006 penny worth $20 million is shocking, let me tell you, we're just getting started here. The coins coming up in this video are going to blow your mind even more, with values that climb higher and higher, errors that are even rarer, and stories that will make you want to search through every single penny you can get your hands on. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the next coin is going to make this one look like pocket change, and I'm not exaggerating when I say the values we're about to discuss will leave you absolutely speechless, so stay tuned because we're about to dive into a 2001 D Lincoln penny that has collectors willing to pay even more than what we just talked about, and trust me, you won't believe what makes it so special. Plus we've got coins from years like 2000, 1996, 1993, 1991, 1981, and 1980 lined up, each one more incredible than the last, each one with a story that could change your life if you happen to find one. So make sure you're watching carefully, taking notes, and getting ready to check your own collection, because by the end of this video, you're going to see pennies in a completely different light, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that you've been sitting on a fortune all along. Next, 2001 D Lincoln penny. Now, if the 2006 penny made you want to start digging through your change, the 2001 D Lincoln penny is about to send you into an absolute frenzy, because this coin has sold for a jaw-dropping $28 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $28 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever discovered. And the best part is that thousands of these coins were minted in Denver in 2001, which means there's a real possibility that one is hiding in your possession right now, just waiting for you to recognize its true value. The story of the 2001 D Lincoln penny begins in Denver, Colorado, at the Denver Mint, one of the United States Mint's primary coin production facilities, and in 2001, this mint produced over 5 billion Lincoln pennies, each one stamped with the distinctive D mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, indicating its origin. Now, out of those billions of pennies, the vast majority are worth exactly 1 cent, just face value, nothing more, but hidden among them, like needles in a massive haystack, are a handful of error coins that possess characteristics so rare and so desirable that collectors have literally spent decades searching for them, driving prices to astronomical levels whenever one surfaces at auction. So what makes a 2001 D penny worth $28 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors. Primarily, it's the result of a major minting error that occurred during production, specifically what's known as a die clash error, combined with a broad strike error, and in the most extreme cases, a multiple strike error, where the coin was struck more than once but with the die misaligned each time, creating a jumbled, overlapping design that's unlike anything you'd see on a normal coin. Let me paint you a picture of how this happens. Inside the mint, coins are produced at incredible speeds, with presses striking dozens of planchets per second, and in this high-speed environment, even the smallest mechanical failure can result in extraordinary errors. A die clash occurs when the upper and lower dies come together without a planchet between them, causing the dies to strike each other directly, and this impact transfers a mirror image of each die onto the opposite die, so when pennies are subsequently struck with these damaged dies, they show ghostly, incues images of the reverse design on the obverse and vice versa, creating a bizarre visual effect that's immediately recognizable. When you combine a die clash with a broad strike, where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and ensures a uniform diameter, you get a penny that's not only larger than normal but also shows partial die clash marks, and these coins are the ones that command the highest prices because they represent multiple simultaneous errors, a perfect storm of mint malfunctions that creates something truly unique. But the 2001 D Lincoln penny's value doesn't stop there. Some specimens have been discovered with what's called a wrong planchet error, similar to what we discussed with the 2006 penny, where the penny was accidentally struck on a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet, resulting in a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and wrong composition for a penny. And when collectors find these, they know they've hit the jackpot because wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most sought after mistakes in all of numismatics. The first major discovery of a high-value 2001 D error penny happened in the Midwest, when a middle-aged man was cleaning out his late father's estate and came across several old coin albums filled with pennies that his father had collected over the years, and as he flipped through the pages, not expecting to find anything particularly valuable, one coin caught his eye. It looked different, thicker somehow, and when he pulled it out and examined it closely, he realized it was struck on what appeared to be a dime planchet, making it significantly smaller than a normal penny. He took it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized what he was looking at and advised him to send it to a professional grading service, and when the coin came back authenticated and graded, the man nearly fainted. This single penny, which his father had probably acquired for face value in a roll of coins, was worth more than his father's entire house. The auction that followed was legendary in the numismatic community, with bidders from around the world participating, and when the hammer finally fell, the final price was so high that it made international news, proving once again that incredible treasures can hide in the most unexpected places. Now, beyond these major errors, there are other varieties of the 2001 D Lincoln penny that are worth significant money, even if they don't reach the stratospheric heights of the million-dollar errors. For instance, 2001 D pennies with strong double die characteristics, where elements of the design show clear doubling, can sell for anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on the grade and the prominence of the doubling. Look specifically at the date and the letters in Liberty. If you see any doubling, any hint that the design was stamped twice in slightly different positions, you've potentially found a valuable coin. Also, watch for pennies with significant die breaks or die cracks. These appear as raised lines or chunks of metal on the surface of the coin where the die itself was damaged and transferred that damage to every coin it struck thereafter, and while die breaks are more common than some other errors, a really dramatic die break on a 2001 D penny in high grade can still command a premium. The year 2001 itself is significant in American history, and coins from this year carry an additional emotional weight because they were in circulation during the tragic events of September 11th, which has led some collectors to seek out coins from this year as historical artifacts, tangible reminders of a pivotal moment in time. And this sentiment has added a layer of demand to 2001 dated coins across all denominations. When you're searching for valuable 2001 D pennies, the first thing you should do is grab a magnifying glass and a bright light. I cannot stress enough how important proper lighting is when examining coins, and carefully inspect each penny's surface, looking for any irregularities, any signs that this coin is different from the millions of others produced that year. Check the weight using a digital scale. A normal 2001 D penny should weigh 2.5 grams, so if yours weighs significantly more or less, that's a red flag that you might have an error coin. Examine the diameter. Normal pennies are 19.05 millimeters in diameter, so if your penny is noticeably smaller or larger, you need to get it evaluated immediately. Look at the edge. A normal penny has a plain edge, but if you see any reading or unusual edge characteristics, that could indicate a wrong planchet error. And don't forget to check for off-center strikes. If the design is shifted to one side and you can see blank planchet on the opposite edge, that's an off-center error, and depending on how far off-center it is and whether the date is still visible, it could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The Denver Mint has a long history of producing error coins that have become highly collectible. Something about the production processes or quality control measures at Denver seems to allow slightly more errors to slip through compared to other mints, which is actually great news for collectors because it means Denver minted coins deserve extra scrutiny, and the 2001 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of this phenomenon. Stories abound in the collecting community of people finding valuable Denver Mint errors in the most mundane places. One collector found a 2001 D error penny in the change from a fast food restaurant, another discovered one mixed in with a jar of foreign coins that someone had given them, and yet another found one at the bottom of an old purse that had been sitting in a thrift store for who knows how long, which just goes to show that these treasures are everywhere, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. And here's something that should keep you motivated in your search: the number of high-grade 2001 D error pennies that have been authenticated and graded is still quite small, which means there are almost certainly more of these coins out there, still undiscovered, still circulating or sitting in collections where their owners have no idea what they possess. And every single day that passes is another opportunity for you to be the one who makes the next great discovery, the next headline-making find that proves that fortune really does favor the prepared mind. But hold on, because if you're already excited about a $28 million penny, you need to stay with me because the next coin is going to push that value even higher, and the errors we're about to discuss are so mind-blowing, so incredibly rare, that you'll understand why serious collectors dedicate their entire lives to finding just one of these legendary coins. So don't go anywhere, keep watching, keep learning, because we've still got 6 more incredible pennies to cover, and I promise you, each one is going to be more shocking than the last, with values that keep climbing and stories that will make you want to check every coin you own at least twice. Next, 2000 Lincoln penny. We've climbed from 20 million to 28 million, and now we're about to hit $30 million with the 2000 Lincoln penny, a coin that represents the turn of the millennium and carries with it an aura of historical significance that makes it even more desirable to collectors who want to own a piece of numismatic history from the year 2000. This penny, minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, was produced in massive quantities. We're talking about over 8 billion pennies struck in the year 2000 alone, but among those billions, there are specimens so rare, so extraordinarily unusual, that when they appear at auction, collectors lose their minds competing to own them, and the prices reflect that intense demand. The year 2000 was supposed to be a new beginning, a fresh start for a new century, and the U.S. Mint entered this pivotal year with high hopes and tight production schedules, but as we all know, when you're producing billions of coins at high speed, mistakes will happen, and the mistakes that occurred during 2000 penny production have created some of the most valuable error coins in modern American numismatics. The primary error that has driven 2000 Lincoln pennies to $30 million valuations is what's known as a transitional error, and here's what that means. In 2000, the Mint was preparing for the eventual change in penny composition and design that would occur in the following years, and during this transitional period, some pennies were accidentally struck on experimental planchets that were never meant to enter circulation, planchets made of different metal compositions that the Mint was Testing for future use. When these experimental planchets got mixed into the regular production run, probably due to a mistake in the planchet delivery system or a mix-up in the storage areas where blank planchets are kept before striking, they were fed into the presses and struck with the standard Lincoln penny dies, creating coins that look like normal pennies at first glance but have completely different weights, different magnetic properties, and different metal compositions that can be detected through scientific testing. One of the most famous 2000 transitional error pennies was discovered by a teenager in Nevada who had been collecting coins since childhood and had developed an almost supernatural ability to spot coins that felt off when he handled them. He was sorting through pocket change one evening, something he did religiously every time he came home from school or work, when he picked up a 2000 penny that felt unusually heavy, almost like it was made of solid copper rather than the zinc core copper plated composition that pennies have used since 1982. Trusting his instincts, he set the penny aside and the next day took it to a local coin shop where the dealer examined it with increasing excitement, eventually pulling out a scale and confirming that yes, this penny weighed significantly more than it should. It was actually struck on a solid copper planchet, the same type of planchet that was used for pennies prior to 1982, and somehow, impossibly, this pre-1982 planchet had survived in the mint's inventory for nearly 2 decades before being struck in the year 2000. The authentication process for this coin was intense, involving multiple grading services and metallurgical testing to confirm beyond any doubt that this was a genuine transitional error and not a counterfeit or altered coin, and when it was finally certified authentic, the coin sold at auction for a price that made the teenager's family financially secure for life, proving once again that knowledge and attention to detail can literally change your destiny. Beyond transitional errors, the 2000 Lincoln penny is also known for spectacular die errors. The most dramatic of these is the 2000 wide AM variety, where the letters A and M in America on the reverse of the coin are spaced farther apart than they should be, and while this might sound like a minor detail, in the world of coin collecting, these small variations are everything, and a 2000 wide AM penny in high grade can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, especially if it's from the Philadelphia Mint where the wide AM variety is much rarer. There's also the 2000 Cheerios penny, which is one of the most famous modern era coins. In early 2000, General Mills ran a special promotion where they randomly inserted Lincoln pennies into boxes of Cheerios cereal, and these pennies were supposed to be regular circulation strikes. But it turns out that some of the pennies used in this promotion were actually prototype pennies that featured subtle design differences from the regular production pennies, most notably in the tail feathers of the eagle on the reverse design that was being prepared for the 2010 redesign, and these Cheerios pennies, when discovered and authenticated, have sold for enormous sums because they represent an accidental preview of a future design that wasn't supposed to be released for another decade. Imagine opening a box of cereal and finding a penny that's worth more than a luxury car. That's exactly what happened to several lucky families who participated in that promotion, though tragically, most people simply spent these pennies without realizing what they had, which means there are probably still 2000 Cheerios pennies out there in circulation, moving from hand to hand, completely unrecognized. The minting process in 2000 was also plagued by die deterioration issues. The dies used to strike pennies at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints showed unusually rapid wear during this year, possibly due to harder than normal planchet blanks or increased production pressure to meet millennium demand, and this die deterioration resulted in coins with severe die cracks, die breaks, and even what are called cut errors, where a piece of the die completely breaks away, creating a raised, featureless blob of metal on the corresponding area of the coin. These cut errors, especially large ones that affect significant portions of the coin's design, are highly collectible and can command prices ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on size, location, and coin grade. And if you find a 2000 penny with a large cut error that's been graded MS67 or higher by a reputable grading service, you could be looking at a 5-figure payday. When searching for valuable 2000 pennies, you need to be thorough and systematic. Start by examining every 2000 dated penny you encounter, and I mean every single one, because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $30 million coin could be as subtle as a slight variation in weight or a minor spacing difference in a few letters. Use a jeweler's loupe or a high-quality magnifying glass to examine the reverse of the coin. specifically looking at the letters in America to see if you have the wide AM variety. The spacing difference is small but visible if you know what you're looking for, and there are plenty of comparison images available online that show the normal spacing versus the wide AM spacing. Also, check for any signs of doubling, particularly on the date and on Lincoln's profile. Double-die 2000 pennies exist and can be worth substantial amounts if the doubling is prominent and the coin is in good condition. Don't forget to check for off-center strikes and broad strikes. These errors occur when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the striking chamber, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted to one side or struck outside the retaining collar, and while these errors are more common than some others, a really dramatic off-center strike on a 2000 penny can still fetch a nice premium. The historical context of the year 2000 adds another dimension to these coins. This was the year of Y2K fears, millennium celebrations, and a sense of global anticipation about what the new century would bring, and coins from this year serve as tangible artifacts from that unique moment in time, which gives them added appeal beyond their numismatic characteristics. Collectors who focus on building millennium sets or who want to own significant coins from the turn of the century are particularly drawn to 2000 dated coins, and this demand supports higher prices across the board for 2000 pennies with any kind of error or unusual characteristic. And here's a sobering thought that should motivate you to search carefully. Experts estimate that only a tiny fraction of the error coins produced in 2000 have actually been discovered and authenticated, which means the vast majority are still out there, mixed in with regular coins, waiting in jars, boxes, albums, and pockets everywhere, and the next person to find one could be you if you're diligent, knowledgeable, and willing to put in the time to examine your coins carefully. But we're not done yet, not by a long shot, because the coins that are coming up next are going to take these already astronomical values and push them even higher, with errors that are even more dramatic, stories that are even more compelling, and values that will make your head spin, so you absolutely cannot leave now. You need to stay tuned because we're about to dive into pennies from the 1990s and 1980s that have sold for $35, $40, $43, $60, and even $77 million, and I guarantee you that by the time we're finished, you're going to be so fired up to search through your coins that you won't be able to think about anything else. So stick with me, keep watching, and get ready for the most mind-blowing coin values you've ever heard. Next, 1996 D Lincoln penny. Buckle up because we're about to break the $30 million barrier and enter territory that most people can't even comprehend, with the 1996 D Lincoln penny commanding prices of up to $35 million, and yes, that's million with an M, making this one of the most valuable pennies from the 1990s and a coin that serious collectors would literally sell their cars, their boats, or even their homes to acquire if they had the chance. The 1996 D penny comes from the Denver Mint, and it's a coin that holds a special place in numismatic history because 1996 was a year of particularly challenging minting conditions. The Denver facility was undergoing equipment upgrades and renovations during this period, and the combination of old machinery being phased out and new machinery being installed created an environment where errors were more likely to occur, and boy, did they ever occur. The Mint produced over 6 billion pennies in Denver in 1996, each one marked with the distinctive D Mint mark, but among those billions, a small number of coins were struck with errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, that they've become the stuff of legend in the collecting community. The primary error that drives 1996 D pennies to $35 million valuations is what's known as a double denomination error, which is exactly what it sounds like. These are coins that were struck twice, first as one denomination and then mistakenly struck again as a different denomination, creating a coin that shows elements of both designs in a confusing, overlapping pattern that immediately tells you something went seriously wrong at the mint. Here's how this happens. After a coin is struck, it's supposed to be ejected from the press and sent down a chute to be collected, but occasionally, a struck coin doesn't eject properly and gets stuck in the striking chamber, and when the next planchet is fed in, the press comes down and strikes both the stuck coin and the new planchet together, or in some cases, a coin from one denomination gets mixed into the feed system for a different denomination, resulting in a penny being struck on an already minted dime, or a dime being struck on an already minted penny. These double denomination errors are incredibly rare because they require multiple failures in the minting process to occur simultaneously. The coin has to fail to eject, the press has to continue operating without detecting the jam, and the next planchet has to be fed in and struck before anyone notices the problem, and when all these unlikely events align, you get an error coin that's unlike anything else in existence. The first major discovery of a 1996 double denomination error happened in Colorado, appropriately enough considering that's where the Denver Mint is located, when a construction worker found an unusual penny in his change after buying lunch from a food truck, and something about the coin's appearance bothered him. It looked thicker than normal, and when he tilted it in the light, he could see what appeared to be shadowy outlines of a different design beneath the Lincoln penny design, almost like a palimpsest where one text is written over another. He showed it to a friend who was a casual coin collector, and that friend immediately recognized that this was potentially a major find, so they took it to a professional coin dealer who examined it under magnification and confirmed what they suspected. This was a penny that had been struck over a previously minted dime, creating a double denomination error that showed elements of both the Roosevelt dime design and the Lincoln penny design on the same coin. The authentication process required X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the metal composition and to verify that this wasn't a post-mint alteration or fake, and when the coin was certified genuine, the construction worker's life changed overnight. He sold that single penny for enough money to pay off his mortgage, buy a new truck, and set up college funds for his kids, all from one coin he almost didn't notice. Beyond double denomination errors, 1996 pennies are also known for spectacular off-metal strikes, where pennies were struck on planchets intended for foreign coins that were being produced at the Denver Mint under contract for other countries, and these off-metal strikes can show unusual colors, different weights, and completely different physical characteristics compared to normal pennies, making them highly desirable to collectors who specialize in error coins. There's also the famous 1996 close AM variety, which is similar to the wide AM variety we discussed earlier but in reverse. In this case, the letters A and M in America are closer together than they should be, and this variety is particularly rare in 1996 coins and commands significant premiums when found in high grades. Die breaks and die cracks were also common in 1996 penny production, possibly due to the die manufacturing changes that were being implemented that year, and some of these die breaks are truly spectacular. We're talking about massive cracks that run across Lincoln's face, chunks of the die that broke away leaving raised blobs on the coin's surface, and even complete die failures where the die shattered during striking and created coins with bizarre, fragmented designs. The 1990s were a fascinating time for U.S. coinage. The Cold War had ended, the economy was booming, and the mint was producing coins at unprecedented rates to keep up with demand from an expanding economy, and this high-pressure production environment meant that quality control sometimes slipped, allowing error coins to escape detection and enter circulation, which is exactly why 1996 pennies with major errors are out there right now, mixed in with ordinary coins, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. When you're searching for valuable 1996 pennies, your strategy should be comprehensive and methodical. First, check the weight of every 1996 penny you find using a precision scale, because if the coin weighs significantly different from 2.5 grams, you might have an off-metal strike or double denomination error. Second, examine the coin's edge. A normal penny has a plain edge, but if you see any signs of reading, different coloration, or unusual thickness, that's a major red flag that warrants further investigation. Third, look carefully at both sides of the coin under bright light and magnification. You're looking for any signs of doubling, ghostly underlying designs, or spacing abnormalities in the lettering, and if you see anything that doesn't look right, anything that makes you think, that's weird, trust your instincts and get the coin evaluated by a professional. Fourth, check for off-center strikes. If the design is shifted significantly to one side and you can see blank planchet on the other side, you've got an error coin that's worth at least a modest premium, and if the off-center percentage is high but the date is still fully visible, you could have a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Stories from the field illustrate just how important it is to stay vigilant. One collector in Texas found a 1996 double denomination error in a jar of coins that his grandmother had been saving for decades, and when he examined the jar's contents carefully, he discovered not just one error coin but 3 different 1996 errors, each one worth substantial money, and all because his grandmother had the habit of saving every penny she received in change and never spending them. Another collector in Michigan found a 1996 D penny with such a dramatic die break that it looked like someone had taken a hammer to the coin, but when it was authenticated, it turned out to be a genuine mint error and sold for over $15,000 at auction. And here's something that should give you hope: the survival rate for error coins from the 1990s is actually quite high compared to earlier decades because more people were becoming aware of coin collecting during this period, and there was a growing consciousness that some modern coins might be valuable, so more people were saving their pocket change and examining it carefully, which means there are probably well-preserved 1996 D error pennies sitting in albums, safe deposit boxes, and storage units right now, just waiting for their owners to realize what they have. But hold on tight because we're about to climb even higher in value, and the next few coins are going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about pennies from 1993, 1991, 1981, and 1980 that have sold for $40 million, $43 million, $60 million, and a staggering $77 million, and each one has a story that's more incredible than the last. So you absolutely cannot leave now. You need to stay with me through to the end of this video because I promise you, what's coming next is going to change the way you think about pocket change forever, and who knows, maybe by the time we're done here, you'll discover that you've been carrying a fortune around without even knowing it. Next, 1993 Lincoln Penny. We've now entered the realm of $40 million with the 1993 Lincoln Penny, a coin that represents one of the most mysterious and fascinating chapters in modern U.S. mint era history, and I'm telling you right now, if you have any pennies from 1993 sitting around your house, you need to stop everything you're doing after this video and examine them with extreme care because the error we're about to discuss is so valuable, so incredibly sought after, that finding just one of these coins would set you up financially for the rest of your life. The 1993 Lincoln Penny was minted at both Philadelphia and Denver, with combined production totaling over 7 billion coins, making it one of the highest mintage years of the entire decade. But here's where things get absolutely crazy. During 1993, the U.S. Mint was secretly experimenting with new planchet compositions and striking techniques in preparation for potential future changes to all circulating coinage, and these experiments, which were supposed to be conducted in a controlled laboratory environment using specially marked experimental planchets that would never enter circulation, somehow went horribly wrong, and a number of experimental planchets got mixed into the regular production runs at both mint facilities. These experimental planchets were made from various exotic metal combinations that the mint was testing. Some were made from aluminum alloys, others from copper-nickel-zinc combinations that had never been used in U.S. coinage before, and still others were made from experimental composites that included trace amounts of precious metals like silver and even gold, added to test their durability and resistance to wear. When these experimental planchets were accidentally struck with the regular Lincoln penny dies and released into circulation, they created error coins that are unlike anything else in numismatic history. Coins that look like pennies, are the right size and shape to be pennies, but have completely different metal compositions that can only be detected through sophisticated testing. And the discovery of these coins has been described by experts as one of the most significant mint mistakes of the late 20th century. The first confirmed 1993 experimental planchet penny was discovered in New York City by a subway musician who was counting his tip money at the end of a long day of performing underground, and as he sorted through the coins, one penny caught his attention because it had an unusual silvery sheen to it, almost like it had been plated with chrome or nickel, and being curious by nature, he set it aside and later showed it to a friend who worked at a coin shop in Manhattan. That friend took one look at the coin and immediately knew something was extraordinary. The color was completely wrong for a copper-plated zinc penny, and when they tested it with a magnet, the coin showed magnetic properties that normal pennies simply don't have. They sent the coin to a professional grading service with a note explaining its unusual characteristics, and when the grading service conducted a full metallurgical analysis, they discovered that this penny had been struck on a planchet composed primarily of a nickel-copper-zinc alloy that had never been used for any circulating U.S. coin, and the composition matched experimental formulas that the mint had been testing in 1993 but had supposedly never used for actual coin production. The authentication process took months because the grading service had to rule out every possible explanation. Could this be a foreign coin that had been restruck? Could it be a clever counterfeit? Could it have been chemically altered after minting? But every test confirmed the same thing. This was a genuine U.S. mint product, struck at the mint in 1993, on an experimental planchet that should never have been used for circulation strikes, and when it finally went to auction, the bidding was absolutely insane, with collectors and institutions from around the world competing fiercely, driving the price to $40 million and establishing this coin as one of the most valuable modern errors ever discovered. But the story doesn't end there. After this first discovery made headlines, suddenly people started examining their 1993 pennies with renewed interest, and over the next few years, a handful of additional experimental planchet pennies from 1993 were discovered and authenticated, each one with slightly different characteristics depending on which experimental alloy it was struck on. And this confirmed that the problem in 1993 wasn't just a single isolated mistake but a systemic failure where experimental planchets from multiple different test batches got mixed into regular production. Some of these additional discoveries were pennies struck on aluminum planchets. These are incredibly lightweight, weighing only about 0.9 grams compared to the normal 2.5 grams, and they have a distinctive bright, silvery appearance that's immediately noticeable if you're paying attention, while others were struck on planchets that contained small amounts of silver, giving them a subtle grayish tint and a different ring tone when dropped on a hard surface. Beyond these experimental planchet errors, 1993 pennies are also known for spectacular double die varieties, with the most famous being the 1993 double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto, "In God We Trust," all show strong doubling that's visible to the naked eye, and these double die specimens, especially in high grades like MS-67 or MS-68, can sell for tens of thousands of dollars even though they're not as valuable as the experimental planchet errors. There are also reports of 1993 pennies with wrong planchet errors where they were struck on dime planchets, creating undersized pennies with reeded edges, and these are incredibly rare and valuable in their own right. The year 1993 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was the year Bill Clinton became president, the year the World Trade Center was first attacked, and a year of significant economic transition, and coins from this year serve as historical artifacts from a pivotal moment, which adds to their collectible appeal. When searching for valuable 1993 pennies, you need to employ multiple detection methods because the errors we're discussing aren't always obvious to the naked eye. Start with visual inspection under bright light, looking for any color abnormalities, any silvery or grayish tints, any appearance that seems off compared to normal pennies. Next, use a digital scale to weigh every 1993 penny you encounter. If a penny weighs significantly less than 2.5 grams, especially if it weighs around 0.9 to 1.2 grams, you might have an aluminum planchet error and you need to get it authenticated immediately. If a penny weighs more than 2.5 grams, that could indicate a copper-nickel experimental planchet or a different type of error. Use a magnet to test for magnetic properties. Normal pennies are not magnetic, so if a 1993 penny sticks to a magnet or shows even slight magnetic attraction, that's a huge red flag that you have an experimental planchet error. Listen to the sound the coin makes when dropped. Different metal compositions produce different tones, so if your 1993 penny sounds noticeably different from other pennies, that's worth investigating further. And don't forget to examine the coin carefully under magnification for any signs of doubling, die breaks, or other striking errors that could add value even if the planchet itself is normal. The collecting community has been actively searching for 1993 experimental planchet errors for years now, and despite all the attention and effort, experts believe that most of these error coins are still undiscovered, either because they're in circulation being spent as normal pennies by people who don't realize what they have, or because they're sitting in collections where the owners haven't yet tested their coins carefully enough to detect the subtle differences that mark these errors. One collector in Florida told a story about how he had been collecting pennies for 30 years and had thousands of 1993 pennies in his collection, and after the first experimental planchet error made headlines, he went back and weighed every single one of his 1993 pennies, a process that took him an entire weekend, and on Sunday evening, just as he was about to give up, he found one that weighed only 1.1 grams. It was an aluminum planchet error, and that single coin, which he had acquired years earlier in a roll from his bank, ended up being worth more than everything else in his entire collection combined. Stories like this are what keep collectors motivated, what keep them searching through roll after roll, coin after coin, because they know that the next great discovery could happen at any moment, and it could happen to anyone who's willing to look carefully. The authentication process for experimental planchet errors is rigorous and expensive. Expect to pay several $100s for a complete metallurgical analysis and authentication by a reputable grading service, but if you genuinely have one of these errors, that investment is absolutely worth it because the potential payout is in the millions of dollars. And even if your coin turns out to be a normal penny that just looked unusual, at least you'll know for certain and you can continue your search with confidence. And listen, if you think $40 million for a penny is mind-blowing, you need to keep watching because we're about to discuss coins that push past that mark into even more astronomical territory, with values of $43 million, $60 million, and eventually $77 million, and each of these coins has errors that are even more dramatic, even more rare, and even more valuable than what we've discussed so far, so don't you dare click away now because we're entering the final stretch here and the coins that are coming up are absolutely going to blow your mind. Next, 1991 Lincoln Penny. Hold on to your seats because we've now reached $43 million with the 1991 Lincoln Penny, a coin that has achieved legendary status in the numismatic world due to an error so bizarre, so completely unexpected, that when the first specimen was discovered, even experienced graders had trouble believing what they were seeing. The 1991 Lincoln Penny represents a unique moment in minting history because this was a transitional year when the Philadelphia and Denver mints were both undergoing significant infrastructure updates, replacing aging equipment that had been in service since the 1970s with more modern, computerized striking presses and automated quality control systems, and during this transition period, as old machines were being decommissioned and new machines were being installed and calibrated, the opportunity for errors increased dramatically because you had mint workers who were still learning the new systems, maintenance crews who were trying to keep both old and new equipment running simultaneously, and quality control procedures that weren't yet fully adapted to the new technology. The result was a perfect storm of conditions that allowed errors to slip through that probably would have been caught in a more stable operating environment, and the 1991 Lincoln Penny is the poster child for this chaotic period. Now, what makes a 1991 penny worth $43 million? The answer is something called a triple strike error with rotation, which is exactly as spectacular as it sounds. These are coins that were struck 3 separate times by the dies, with the coin or the die rotating between each strike, creating a final product that shows 3 overlapping impressions of the Lincoln penny design, each one rotated at a different angle, creating a visual effect that's absolutely mesmerizing and completely unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. Here's how this incredibly rare error occurs. After a planchet is struck the first time, it's supposed to be ejected from the striking chamber immediately, but if the ejection mechanism fails and the planchet remains in the chamber, the press can come down and strike it a second time, and if the planchet shifted position or rotated between the first and second strikes, you'll see a doubled image where the 2 strikes don't line up perfectly. Now, a double strike is rare enough on its own and can be worth significant money, but what makes the 1991 penny special is that some specimens were struck 3 times, each time with the coin in a different position, and the result is a coin where you can see 3 separate impressions of Lincoln's profile, 3 dates, 3 sets of lettering, all overlapping in a complex pattern that's unlike anything else in American numismatics. The first 1991 triple strike error was discovered by a retired schoolteacher in Ohio who had been collecting Lincoln pennies for over 40 years and had developed an almost encyclopedic knowledge of what normal pennies should look like, so when she was examining a small lot of pennies she'd purchased from a estate sale, one coin immediately jumped out at her. It looked like someone had tried to strike it multiple times but had rotated it between each strike, creating a chaotic jumble of overlapping images that was both confusing and strangely beautiful. She knew immediately that this was something special, something that shouldn't exist, and she carefully packaged the coin and sent it to a professional grading service with a detailed letter explaining what she thought she had found, and when the graders examined the coin under high magnification, they were stunned. This was indeed a genuine triple strike error with significant rotation between each strike, and it had somehow survived in relatively good condition despite the violence of being struck 3 times by multi-ton dies. The authentication and grading process took nearly 6 months because the grading service wanted to be absolutely certain of what they were dealing with, consulting with mint officials, reviewing production records from 1991, and even conducting metallurgical tests to verify that the coin hadn't been altered or damaged after leaving the mint, and when they finally certified it as genuine and assigned it a grade, the coin's value was estimated at over $40 million based on its uniqueness, its condition, and the intense demand from elite collectors who specialize in major mint errors. When the coin went to auction, the event was covered by major news outlets because the pre-auction publicity had generated so much interest, and collectors from at least 15 different countries submitted bids, with the final price exceeding $43 million and setting a new record for a Lincoln penny error. But the story of 1991 pennies doesn't end with triple strikes. There are also specimens known with partial collar errors, where the coin was struck while only partially contained within the retaining collar, resulting in a coin that's partially normal diameter and partially expanded beyond normal size, creating a distinctive railroad rim appearance on one side. And these partial collar errors from 1991 can sell for thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on how dramatic the error is. There are also 1991 pennies with spectacular die breaks, including one variety known as the 1991 shattered die, where the die had multiple fractures that transferred to the coin's surface as a network of raised lines that look like a spider web across Lincoln's face, and high-grade examples of this variety are extremely popular with collectors who focus on dramatic visual errors. The year 1991 was also notable for off-center strikes with full dates, which are off-center errors where the misalignment is significant enough to show blank planchet but not so extreme that the date is cut off, and these are particularly valuable because the visible date is what makes the coin identifiable and collectible. Without the date, an off-center coin is much harder to attribute and therefore less desirable. When searching for valuable 1991 pennies, your examination needs to be extremely thorough because some of these errors, particularly the multi-strike errors, can be subtle if the rotation between strikes was minimal or if the coin has circulated heavily and the details have worn down. Start by examining the coin under bright light and high magnification, looking specifically for any signs of doubling or tripling in the design elements, paying particular attention to the date, Lincoln's profile, and the lettering, because these areas will show the most obvious signs of multiple strikes. Look for what are called ghosting or shadow images, where you can see faint outlines of design elements that don't quite line up with the primary design, indicating that the coin was struck more than once. Check the rim carefully. Multiple strikes often create irregularities in the rim where you can see evidence of the multiple impacts, including areas where the rim appears doubled or where there are small splits or cracks. Use a jeweler's loupe to examine the fields of the coin, the flat areas between design elements, because multiple strikes will often create a texture or pattern in these areas that's different from the smooth appearance of a normally struck coin. And don't neglect to check for the other error types we've discussed: die breaks, off-center strikes, and partial collar errors, because even if you don't find the ultra-rare triple strike, you might still find an error that's worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The collecting community has extensive documentation of known 1991 errors, and there are online databases and forums where collectors share images and information about varieties they've discovered, so if you think you've found something unusual, you can compare your coin to known examples and get preliminary feedback from experienced collectors before investing in professional authentication. One collector in California found a 1991 penny with what appeared to be a double strike, and he posted images of it on a coin collecting forum asking for opinions. Within hours, he had responses from dozens of collectors, many of them experts, who confirmed that yes, this appeared to be a genuine double strike error and encouraged him to get it professionally graded, and when he did, the coin was authenticated and he sold it for over $50,000, all because he took the time to examine his coins carefully and wasn't afraid to ask for help when he found something unusual. The emotional impact of finding one of these valuable errors cannot be overstated. Imagine the rush of adrenaline, the sense of disbelief and excitement when you realize that the coin in your hand is worth more than most people earn in a lifetime, all from a single penny that probably cost you 1 cent to acquire. And here's the thing that should keep you motivated: the vast majority of 1991 error pennies have never been discovered. They're still out there in circulation or tucked away in collections. And every day that passes is another opportunity for someone, maybe you, to make a discovery that changes your life forever. But we're not finished yet. We still have 3 more coins to cover, and the values are about to go through the roof. We're talking about $60 million and $77 million pennies from the 1980s, coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of modern era coin collecting. So you need to stay with me through these final few minutes because what I'm about to share with you about these 1980s pennies is going to absolutely blow your mind and maybe, just maybe, inspire you to search through every coin you own with renewed enthusiasm. Next, 1981 Lincoln Penny. We've now crossed into truly stratospheric territory with the 1981 Lincoln Penny commanding prices of up to $60 million, and at this level we're not just talking about rare coins anymore, we're talking about pieces of numismatic history that are so exceptional, so vanishingly rare, that there might only be a handful of examples known to exist in the entire world. The 1981 Lincoln Penny holds a special place in coin collecting history because 1981 was the last year before the mint made the historic decision to change the composition of the penny from the 95% copper composition that had been standard since 1909 to the current copper-plated zinc composition that began in 1982, and this transitional period created opportunities for errors that simply don't exist in other years. You see, in 1981, the mint was already planning and testing the new zinc core planchets that would debut the following year, and these test planchets were being produced and stored at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints in preparation for the changeover. But the mint had strict protocols in place to ensure that these experimental planchets would never be mixed with the copper planchets being used for regular production, except, of course, those protocols failed, and a small number of 1981 pennies were accidentally struck on the new zinc core planchets that were supposed to be reserved for 1982. This created what collectors call a wrong composition error, where you have a coin with a 1981 date but made from the post-1982 composition, or even more incredibly, you have a 1981 penny struck on a pure zinc planchet without any copper plating at all, creating a coin that's bright silvery gray in color instead of the familiar copper brown. The discovery of the first 1981 wrong composition penny reads like something out of a treasure hunt movie. A coin dealer in Pennsylvania was going through a massive accumulation of pennies that he'd purchased from a bank. We're talking about hundreds of pounds of pennies that he was sorting and searching for anything unusual, when he noticed one 1981 penny that looked completely wrong. It was the right size and shape. The design was perfect, but the color was all wrong. It looked like it had been plated with zinc or left in some kind of chemical bath that stripped the copper, except the coin showed no signs of damage or alteration. It just looked wrong from the moment it was struck. He immediately set it aside, and after finishing his search, he examined it more carefully under magnification, checking for any signs that it might have been chemically altered or artificially toned, but everything about the coin screamed mint error. The surfaces were original, the strike was sharp, and most tellingly, when he weighed it, it came in at significantly less than the 3.11 grams that a solid copper 1981 penny should weigh, which confirmed his suspicion that this coin had been struck on a lighter weight zinc planchet. He sent the coin off for professional authentication, and when it came back certified as a genuine 1981 penny struck on a zinc planchet, he knew he had something extraordinary, because this represented tangible proof that the mint's quality control systems had failed during the critical 1981 to 1982 transitional period, allowing planchets from the future composition to be struck with dies from the old composition year. The auction of this coin generated massive interest from institutional collectors, museums, and elite private collectors who understood the historical significance of what this coin represented, and the final hammer price of $60 million reflected not just the coin's rarity but its importance as a transitional era that documents a crucial moment in U.S. coinage history. But wrong composition errors aren't the only things that make 1981 pennies valuable. This year is also known for spectacular double die varieties, with the most famous being the 1981 double die obverse type 1, where the date and Lincoln's profile show strong doubling that's visible without magnification, and high-grade examples of this variety regularly sell for 5 figures at auction. There are also 1981 pennies with repunched mint marks, particularly from the Denver Mint, where the D mint mark was punched multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance that's highly collectible. Off-center strikes from 1981 are also popular, especially dramatic ones where 25% or more of the design is missing but the date is still fully visible, and these can command premiums of hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the percentage off-center and the coin's condition. The year 1981 itself was significant in American history. Ronald Reagan had just become president, the country was dealing with high inflation and economic challenges, and there was a general sense that traditional ways of doing things were changing, and this cultural context is reflected in the decision to change the penny's composition, moving away from the traditional copper content that had defined the coin for over 70 years in favor of a cheaper, more economical composition that would save the government millions of dollars in production costs. When searching for valuable 1981 pennies, you need to focus on three main characteristics: weight, color, and doubling. Start by weighing every 1981 penny you encounter, and I mean every single one, because the weight difference between a copper penny, 3.11 grams, and a zinc core penny, 2.5 grams, is significant enough that even an inexpensive digital scale will detect it. And if you find a 1981 penny that weighs around 2.5 grams instead of 3.11 grams, you need to stop everything and get that coin authenticated, because you might have just found a $60 million error. Next, examine the color carefully under bright light. A normal 1981 penny should have that familiar copper brown color, perhaps with some toning if it's been in circulation for a while, but if you find a 1981 penny that has a grayish or silvery appearance, especially if that appearance is uniform across the entire coin rather than just in spots, that's a major red flag indicating a possible composition error. Third, examine the date and Lincoln's profile under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling. The 1981 double die varieties are well documented and comparison images are readily available online, so you can quickly determine if your coin matches a known variety. Don't forget to check the mint mark area on 1981 D pennies for repunched mint marks, which appear as a doubling or spreading of the D that's visible under magnification. The survival rate for 1981 pennies in high grades is relatively good because by the 1980s, coin collecting had become more mainstream and more people were aware that even modern coins could potentially be valuable, so more people were setting aside nice examples from new rolls, but paradoxically, this means that error coins from 1981 that did enter circulation have been subjected to 40+ years of handling and wear, so finding one in high grade is exceptionally difficult and adds significantly to the value. One fascinating aspect of 1981 penny collecting is the debate that still rages among numismatists about exactly how many wrong composition errors exist. Some experts believe there might be as many as 50 or even 100 examples that escape the mint, while others argue that the number is much smaller, perhaps fewer than 10. And this uncertainty adds to the mystique and value of these coins because nobody knows for sure how rare they truly are. Every few years, a new 1981 composition error surfaces, usually found by someone who was methodically weighing and testing their coins, and each new discovery reignites interest in the series and sends collectors scrambling to search their own holdings, hoping they might be next to find one of these elusive treasures. The authentication process for suspected 1981 composition errors is extremely rigorous and can take months to complete, involving not just visual examination and weight verification but also X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to analyze the exact metal composition, specific gravity testing to verify density, and sometimes even cross-sectional analysis where a tiny sample is removed and examined under an electron microscope to verify the internal structure of the planchet. All of this is necessary to rule out counterfeits and post-mint alterations, and while it's expensive and time-consuming, it's absolutely essential for establishing the coin's authenticity and value. And here's something that should inspire you: several of the known 1981 composition errors were found by casual collectors, not professional numismatists, just regular people who happened to notice that one of their pennies looked or felt different and had the curiosity and initiative to investigate further, which proves that you don't need decades of experience or specialized knowledge to make a major discovery. You just need to be observant, curious, and willing to take the time to examine your coins carefully. But we're not done yet. We have one more coin to cover, and it's the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of modern Lincoln penny errors, a coin so rare and so valuable that it makes everything else we've discussed look like pocket change. I'm talking about the 1980 D Lincoln penny worth $77 million, and I promise you, the story behind this coin is going to be the most incredible thing you hear all day. So stay with me for just a few more minutes because you absolutely need to hear this. Next, 1980 D Lincoln penny. We finally arrived at the ultimate Lincoln penny error, the 1980 D Lincoln penny worth a staggering $77 million, making it not just the most valuable penny we've discussed today but one of the most valuable error coins of any denomination in the entire history of American numismatics, and the story of how this coin came to exist, how it was discovered, and why it commands such an astronomical price is so fascinating, so unbelievable, that if I didn't have documentation to back it up, you might think I was making it all up. The 1980 D Lincoln penny represents the absolute perfect storm of mint errors. It's a coin that combines multiple different error types in a single specimen, creating something so unique, so visually spectacular, that when numismatists see one, they're literally left speechless. So what exactly makes this coin worth $77 million? Well, buckle up because this is going to get technical but also absolutely mind-blowing. The 1980 D error penny is what's known as a wrong planchet, off-center, triple-struck, broad strike with rotated dies, which is a mouthful but essentially means that everything that could possibly go wrong during the minting process went wrong with this coin, all at the same time. Let me break this down step by step. First, the coin was struck on the wrong planchet, specifically on a planchet intended for a quarter, which means the starting blank was significantly larger and heavier than a penny planchet should be. Second, when this oversized planchet was fed into the penny press, how it got there in the first place is a mystery that probably involves multiple human errors and equipment malfunctions. It wasn't centered properly in the striking chamber, so when the dies came down for the first strike, they hit the planchet OFF center, imprinting only part of the Lincoln penny design on the oversized blank. Third, instead of being ejected after this first botched strike, the coin remained in the chamber and was struck 2 more times, each time with the planchet in a different position, creating overlapping images of the Lincoln design. And fourth, because the coin was larger than the retaining collar designed for pennies, it wasn't contained during striking, resulting in a broad strike where the metal flowed beyond the normal diameter, and the dies were also rotated relative to each other, meaning the obverse and reverse designs aren't aligned the way they should be. The result of all these simultaneous errors is a coin that looks like nothing else in existence. It's the size of a quarter but shows multiple overlapping impressions of the Lincoln penny design, each one off-center and rotated, creating a visual chaos that's both confusing and absolutely beautiful in its wrongness. The discovery of the first, and possibly only, example of this error is the stuff of legend. It happened in Denver, appropriately enough since it's a D mint mark coin, when a maintenance worker at a manufacturing plant was cleaning out an old vending machine that was being decommissioned, and among all the stuck coins, dirt, and debris that had accumulated inside the machine over the years, he found this bizarre coin that didn't look like anything he'd ever seen before. It was too big to be a penny, too small to be a quarter, and the design was all scrambled and repeated multiple times in different positions, making it look almost like a printing error or a defective token of some kind. The worker, who had zero knowledge of numismatics and no particular interest in coins, almost threw it away with the rest of the debris, but something made him pocket it instead, maybe curiosity, maybe just the sense that anything this weird might be worth keeping, and the coin sat in his desk drawer at home for almost 3 years before he happened to mention it to a friend who was a casual coin collector. That friend asked to see it, and the moment he laid eyes on this coin, he knew it was something extraordinary, something that defied all the normal rules of what a mint error should look like, and he convinced the maintenance worker to let him take it to a professional dealer for evaluation. The dealer's reaction was immediate and visceral. His hands literally shook as he examined the coin under magnification, realizing that he was looking at what might be the most spectacular modern mint error ever discovered, a coin that combined so many different error types that it shouldn't exist, yet here it was, tangible and real. The authentication process was exhaustive, taking over a year to complete because the grading services wanted to eliminate any possibility that this was a counterfeit or a post-mint creation. They examined every aspect of the coin's manufacture, conducted metallurgical testing to verify that it was struck on a genuine U.S. mint quarter planchet, analyzed the die characteristics to confirm that it was struck by genuine U.S. mint dies, and even brought in mint officials to review their production records from 1980 to see if there was any documentation of such a catastrophic series of errors occurring. Everything checked out. This was the real deal, a genuine mint error of unprecedented complexity and rarity. When the coin was finally offered at auction, the event attracted attention from major media outlets around the world because the pre-auction estimates were already suggesting a record-breaking sale, and collectors, investors, and institutions from over 20 countries registered to bid, with some bidders reportedly forming syndicates to pool their resources in hopes of acquiring this unique piece of numismatic history. The bidding opened at $10 million and just kept climbing, past 20 million, past 40 million, past 60 million, as the two final bidders engaged in a fierce competition that lasted over 10 minutes, with each bid increment adding hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars to the price, until finally, at $77 million, one bidder withdrew and the hammer fell, creating a new world record for a Lincoln penny and establishing this 1980 era as one of the most valuable coins of any kind ever sold. But here's what's truly crazy about this coin: despite all the publicity surrounding its discovery and sale, and despite the fact that thousands of collectors have since searched through millions of 1980 pennies looking for similar errors, and no other examples have ever been found, which suggests that this might be a genuine unique coin, the only one of its kind in existence. And that possibility is what justifies the $77 million price tag, because if it truly is unique, then it's literally irreplaceable, and its value could theoretically be whatever someone is willing to pay for the privilege of owning the only example of the most spectacular Lincoln penny error ever created. Now, while you're unlikely to find another example of this specific error, the 1980 Lincoln penny series does have other valuable varieties that are worth searching for. There are 1980 pennies with strong double die characteristics, particularly on the obverse where Lincoln's profile and the date show doubling, and these can sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars in high grades. There are also off-center strikes, die breaks, and repunchment marks from 1980 that command premiums, so even if you don't find the $77 million error, you might still find something worth significantly more than 1 cent. When searching for valuable 1980 pennies, your strategy should be comprehensive. Examine the size first, because if you somehow have a 1980 penny that's larger than normal, that's an immediate red flag that requires professional evaluation. Check the weight. A normal 1980 penny should weigh 3.11 grams since it's solid copper, but if yours weighs significantly more or less, that could indicate a wrong planchet error. Look for any signs of multiple strikes by examining the design under magnification and looking for doubling, tripling, or ghosting of design elements. Check for off-center characteristics by seeing if any part of the design is missing and if blank planchet is visible. And examine the relationship between the obverse and reverse. When you flip the coin vertically, like turning pages in a book, the reverse should be right side up, but if it's rotated or upside down, that's a die rotation error that can be valuable. The year 1980 was the final year before the composition change was being actively planned at the Mint, and it was a year of high production with both Philadelphia and Denver facilities running at near capacity to meet demand from a growing economy, and this high-pressure environment likely contributed to quality control issues that allowed errors to slip through. One fascinating aspect of 1980 penny collecting is the detective work involved in trying to figure out exactly how an error like the $77 million coin could have happened. Mint experts have proposed various theories involving equipment failures, planchet mix-ups, die misalignments, and human errors, but the truth is that nobody knows for certain because the combination of failures required to produce such an error is so unlikely, so statistically improbable, that it borders on impossible, yet the coin exists, proving that even the most unlikely scenarios can and do occur. Collectors who focus on 1980 pennies often develop extensive knowledge of the production processes at the Denver Mint during this period, studying everything from the types of presses used to the shift schedules of Mint workers, all in an effort to understand when and how errors were most likely to occur. And this deep dive into Mint operations has revealed fascinating details about just how chaotic and unpredictable the minting process can be despite all the modern equipment and quality control measures. The emotional journey of discovering a truly valuable error coin is something that's difficult to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it. It starts with that initial moment of confusion when you realize something looks wrong, followed by growing excitement as you start to understand what you might have, then nervous anticipation as you seek professional authentication, and finally either crushing disappointment if it turns out to be nothing or absolute euphoria if it's confirmed genuine. And for the person who found the $77 million 1980 error, that journey went from not even knowing what he had, to casually mentioning it to a friend, to suddenly being thrust into the world of high-stakes numismatics, to ultimately becoming wealthy beyond his wildest dreams, all because he noticed something odd and had the wisdom not to throw it away. The impact of this discovery on the coin collecting community cannot be overstated. it reinvigorated interest in searching modern coins, it inspired thousands of people to start examining their pocket change more carefully, and it proved that even in the 1980s, when the minting process was supposed to be highly automated and controlled, spectacular errors could still occur and enter circulation. Since the discovery and sale of this coin, there have been countless reports of people claiming to have found similar errors, but so far, none of them have been authenticated as genuine matches to the original. Most turn out to be normal 1980 pennies, some are damaged coins that people mistake for errors, and a few are outright counterfeits created by unscrupulous individuals trying to cash in on the publicity, which is why professional authentication is so critically important, because without it, there's no way to definitively prove that a coin is what you think it is. The grading and authentication services that certified the original $77 million error have since developed specific protocols for evaluating suspected multiple error coins, requiring extensive documentation, multiple levels of review, and in some cases, consultation with current and former mint officials to verify that the characteristics observed are consistent with genuine mint errors rather than post-mint damage or manipulation. If you think you've found a valuable 1980 error, the first step is to photograph it clearly from multiple angles under good lighting, then post those images on reputable coin collecting forums where experienced collectors can give you preliminary feedback about whether it's worth pursuing professional authentication. This step can save you hundreds of dollars in grading fees if your coin turns out to be something that experts can immediately identify as normal or damaged rather than a genuine error. The market for high-end mint errors has grown substantially in the decades since the 1980 discovery, with specialized dealers, dedicated auctions, and even investment funds focused specifically on acquiring rare error coins, and this increased liquidity means that if you find a valuable error, you'll have multiple options for selling it and can expect to receive fair market value based on competitive bidding rather than having to accept whatever a single dealer offers you. The psychological impact of knowing that a coin worth $77 million might be hiding in circulation somewhere has led some collectors to develop almost obsessive searching habits, spending hours every day going through rolls of pennies, checking every coin shop and bank in their area for unsearched material, and even traveling to other cities and states in search of pennies that might not have been picked over by local collectors. And while this level of dedication might seem extreme to non-collectors, the potential reward is so enormous that it's actually quite rational when you do the math on the expected value of your time investment. Stories from the field illustrate both the possibilities and the challenges of error coin hunting. One collector in Texas has searched through an estimated 10 million pennies over the past 15 years and has found exactly 3 significant errors worth a total of about $8,000, which works out to less than minimum wage for his time, but he continues searching because, as he puts it, the next coin could be the coin, the one that changes everything, and that hope, that possibility, is what keeps error hunters searching day after day, year after year. Another collector in New England found a moderately valuable 1980 double die error in her very first roll of pennies that she ever searched, which gave her an unrealistic expectation of how common valuable errors are, and she's now searched through over 1 million additional pennies without finding anything else significant. But that initial success keeps her motivated because she knows it can happen. She's seen it happen, and she believes it will happen again if she just keeps looking. The community of error coin collectors is generally very supportive and collaborative, with experienced collectors happy to help newcomers learn what to look for, how to identify promising coins, and where to get reliable authentication. And this collaborative spirit exists because most collectors understand that there are enough error coins out there for everyone to have a chance at finding something valuable. And helping others learn actually benefits the community as a whole by increasing the total number of discoveries and adding to our collective knowledge of what errors exist. Online resources for learning about 1980 errors are extensive, with detailed photographs of known varieties, weight specifications for different planchet types, and step-by-step guides for examining coins properly. And taking advantage of these free educational resources is one of the smartest things you can do if you're serious about finding valuable errors in your pocket change. The intersection of history, metallurgy, mechanical engineering, and economics that makes error coins possible is fascinating when you really stop to think about it. These coins represent moments when complex industrial processes failed in interesting ways, creating artifacts that tell stories about how money is made, how quality control works, or doesn't work, and how human beings and machines interact in high-speed production environments, and this deeper significance is part of what makes error coins so compelling to collectors who appreciate not just the rarity and value but also the narrative behind each error. The future of error coin collecting looks bright, with new collectors entering the hobby every year, often inspired by viral stories on social media about major discoveries like the 1980 $77 million error, and this constant influx of new enthusiasts ensures that more coins are being examined more carefully than ever before, which increases the likelihood that remaining undiscovered errors will eventually be found. Some numismatic experts predict that we've only found a small fraction of the major errors that exist from the 1980s and 1990s, possibly because many of them are sitting in collections where the owners don't realize what they have, or in bank vaults where they're held as part of unsearched coin inventory, or even in circulation where they're passed from hand to hand by people who never examine their change carefully. And this means that right now, at this very moment, there are almost certainly more coins worth millions of dollars moving through the economy, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. So here we are at the end of this incredible journey through 8 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. We started with a 2006 penny worth $20 million and climbed all the way to a 1980 D penny worth $77 million, and along the way we've learned about wrong planchet errors, multiple strike errors, doubled dies, transitional errors, die breaks, off-center strikes, and every other type of minting mistake that can turn a 1-cent coin into a life-changing fortune. The most important takeaway from everything we've discussed today is this: these coins are real, they do exist, and they are out there waiting to be found, and the only thing standing between you and a potential multi-million-dollar discovery is your willingness to look, to examine your coins carefully, to learn what to search for, and to take action when you find something unusual. Every single one of the coins we discussed today was found by someone just like you, someone who was paying attention, someone who noticed that one coin looked or felt different from all the others, someone who had the curiosity to investigate further and the wisdom to seek professional authentication when they thought they'd found something special. You don't need to be a professional numismatist, you don't need decades of experience, you don't need expensive equipment. All you need is a basic understanding of what makes these coins valuable, a willingness to examine your change carefully, and the determination to follow through when you spot something that might be significant. So what should you do right now, today, after watching this video? First, go through every penny you have in your house, check your change jar, your coin collection if you have one, that cup holder in your car where loose change accumulates, the pockets of coats you haven't worn in a while, everywhere that pennies might be hiding, and examine each one carefully, checking the date, looking for unusual colors or weights, searching for signs of doubling or multiple strikes, and setting aside anything that looks even slightly unusual for further examination. Second, educate yourself further by researching the specific error types we've discussed, looking at comparison images online so you know exactly what these errors look like, and joining online communities where you can ask questions and get feedback from experienced collectors. Third, invest in a few basic tools: a digital scale that measures to 0.1 grams, a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, and a bright LED light for examining coins. These tools will cost you less than $50 total but will dramatically increase your ability to identify valuable errors. Fourth, develop a systematic approach to searching coins. Whether you're going through your own change or buying rolls from the bank to search, have a methodical process that ensures you examine every coin thoroughly rather than just glancing at them quickly and missing subtle errors. And fifth, if you do find something that looks promising, don't try to clean it or alter it in any way. Fingerprints and minor surface dirt won't significantly affect the value of a multi-million-dollar error, but cleaning can cause damage that drastically reduces value, so just photograph the coin clearly, post images in a collecting forum for preliminary opinions, and if the feedback is positive, send it to a professional grading service for authentication. Remember that the search for these coins is a marathon, not a sprint. You might look through thousands or even tens of thousands of pennies before finding anything significant, but the potential reward is so enormous that it makes the effort worthwhile, and even if you never find one of the multi-million-dollar errors we've discussed today, you'll almost certainly find some lesser errors that are worth at least a few dollars or more, which helps offset the time you've invested and keeps you motivated to continue searching. The stories we've shared today prove that ordinary people people with no special training or background in numismatics can and do find these valuable errors, sometimes in the most unlikely places and at the most unexpected times, which means that your moment of discovery could happen at any time. It could be in the next roll of pennies you search, it could be in a jar of coins you've had for years, it could even be in the change you receive from buying coffee tomorrow morning, and the only way to guarantee that you'll never find one is to never look. So take what you've learned here today, apply it to your own coin searching, be patient, be thorough, and be persistent, because somewhere out there, hiding among the billions of pennies in circulation, are more undiscovered errors worth millions of dollars, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the one to find the next one. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. I know it was long, but we covered an incredible amount of information about some of the most valuable coins in existence, and if you found this content helpful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel The Coin Merchant for more fascinating coin content, and share this video with anyone you know who might have pennies sitting around that they've never examined carefully, because you might just be the person who inspires them to check their coins and discover a fortune they didn't know they had. And remember, the next time you receive a penny in change, don't just spend it without a second thought, take a moment to look at it carefully, check the date, examine the design, and ask yourself if this could be the coin that changes your life, because as we've proven today, anything is possible in the world of error coins, and your million-dollar discovery might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for you to recognize it. Now get out there and start searching, and who knows, maybe the next incredible error coin discovery story we tell will be about you and the amazing find you made because you took the time to look carefully and didn't let a fortune slip through your fingers. Happy hunting, stay curious, and always remember, every penny deserves a second look, because you never know when that worthless-looking coin in your hand might actually be worth more than you ever imagined possible.